saw the millionaire's blind daughter struggling. What she did next melted his heart. I saw your daughter struggling to find her way to the table, and no one helped her. So I did. I hope that's okay. Before we continue, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more emotional stories like this one. It was a quiet Tuesday morning in Savannah, Georgia, when Emily Turner, a 27-year-old waitress, started her shift at the Magnolia Bistro, a cozy restaurant overlooking the riverfront. The air was filled with the aroma of freshly baked biscuits and roasted coffee beans, and the hum of morning chatter mixed with the sound of jazz coming from the speakers. Emily had worked there for almost 3 years, always greeting everyone with a gentle smile. Life hadn't been kind to her. She was paying off medical bills for her mother, who had recently suffered a stroke, and juggling extra shifts just to make rent. Yet, despite her struggles, she never lost her warmth. That morning, something unusual caught her attention. A sleek black car stopped in front of the restaurant. The driver stepped out and opened the back door for a young girl, perhaps 16, wearing dark sunglasses and holding a white cane. Her movements were careful but uncertain. The driver tried to guide her, but she shook her head, insisting she could manage alone. Emily's heart tightened as she watched the girl's cane tap against the curb, missing the step entirely. She stumbled, catching herself at the last moment. No one moved to help. Some patrons glanced, others pretended not to notice. Without thinking, Emily put down the coffee pot and hurried outside. "Hey, you're okay," she said softly, reaching out but careful not to touch without permission. "Can I help you find your table?" The girl hesitated, her expression cautious but kind. I think I'm supposed to meet my dad here," she replied. Emily smiled. "Then let's find him together." Inside, she guided the girl to a corner table near the window, one of the best spots in the house. Waiting there was a man in a grey suit, his posture straight, his expression focused on his phone. His presence commanded the space, refined, calm, but distant. When he looked up and saw Emily helping his daughter, his eyes softened just slightly. "Thank you," he said, his voice deep and smooth, revealing years of authority. "You didn't have to." "It's no problem," Emily replied, smiling. "I'm just glad she's okay." But as she walked away, she overheard the man's next words. "Lily, you should have waited for Mr. Peterson. You know I don't like it when you walk alone." "I'm not helpless, Dad," Lily replied quietly. "I just wanted to feel normal for once." Emily turned her head subtly. The man was Alexander Brooks, owner of a chain of luxury hotels across the southeast. Everyone in town knew his name and his wealth. He was the kind of man who commanded respect wherever he went. But right now, sitting across from his blind daughter, he looked fragile, unsure. Throughout the morning, Emily couldn't stop glancing at their table. She saw the tension between them, the silence, the way Lily's smile faded every time her father corrected her, and the sadness in Alexander's eyes when he realized she was pulling away. Later, when Emily returned to refill their drinks, Lily accidentally knocked over her glass of water. It spilled across the table and onto her lap. Before anyone else could react, Emily grabbed a towel and gently helped her clean up, her movements quick but tender. "It happens to everyone," Emily said, smiling. "Don't worry." Lily giggled, a soft, genuine sound that seemed to lighten the entire restaurant. Alexander looked at Emily, as if seeing her properly for the first time. There was something about her, not her uniform, not her tired eyes, but the way she treated his daughter without pity. When the meal ended, Alexander left a generous tip. But as he handed Emily the bill, he said quietly, "You have a good heart." People don't often take the time to see her, not really see her. Emily smiled, unaware that this simple act of kindness was about to change her life in ways she could never have imagined. And as Alexander and Lily left the restaurant, Emily noticed something strange. Alexander paused at the door, turned back to look at her, and for a fleeting moment his guarded expression broke into something warmer. What she didn't know was that this small encounter had stirred something deep within the millionaire, something he thought he had lost long ago. And you won't believe what happened next. 3 days later, Emily was halfway through her evening shift when she heard the familiar sound of a deep, calm voice behind her. "Excuse me," Alexander Brooks said, standing by the entrance of the Magnolia Bistro. "Is the table by the window available?" Emily's heart skipped. "Oh, Mr. Brooks, of course." He smiled slightly. "And please, call me Alexander." He wasn't alone this time. Lily stood beside him, cane in hand, wearing a soft yellow dress and a radiant smile that Emily hadn't seen before. Emily led them to their usual table. Lily reached out, touching the chair's edge before sitting down. "Hi, Emily," she said, her tone bright and confident. "Dad said we should come back here. I think he really liked your biscuits." Alexander chuckled quietly. "She's exaggerating. But yes, the food here is good." Emily blushed. "I'll tell the kitchen you said that." As she turned to leave, Alexander spoke again. "Actually, Emily, would you mind joining us for a moment? There's something I'd like to ask." Her brows furrowed, surprised but curious. "Of course." She sat down across from them, resting her order pad on her lap. Alexander leaned forward, his eyes serious yet gentle. "Lily is starting a new mobility program soon, learning to navigate with her cane in unfamiliar environments. Her therapist recommended more practice outside the house, but she doesn't like being followed by our staff. She feels watched." "I just want to walk around like a normal girl," Lily said softly. "But my dad worries too much." Alexander sighed. "I do, and I can't always be there. So I was wondering if you'd consider helping her just for a few afternoons a week. You seem to make her feel comfortable." Emily blinked, speechless. You want me to help her?" "Yes," he said simply. "I'd, of course, compensate you for your time." For a moment, Emily's mind spun. She needed the money. Her mother's medications were overdue, and the bills kept piling up. But this wasn't just a job offer. It was a responsibility, one that involved trust. She looked at Lily, who sat quietly, her fingers tracing patterns on her napkin. "I'd love to," Emily said finally, "if you're both okay with it." Lily's face lit up. "Really? You mean it?" Emily nodded. "I do." The rest of that dinner felt lighter, almost like a family gathering. Alexander smiled more often, Lily laughed freely, and Emily felt something she hadn't in a long time: belonging. That night, as she walked home through the soft savannah breeze, Emily couldn't stop thinking about them. She had never been part of a world like theirs, elegant, distant, surrounded by wealth. Yet, somehow, she felt drawn to it. Not because of money, but because of the genuine warmth she'd glimpsed beneath Alexander's composed exterior. The next afternoon, she met Lily at Forsyth Park, the heart of the city, with its fountains and oak trees draped in Spanish moss. Lily's steps were hesitant at first, but with Emily's gentle encouragement, she began to move more confidently. "You don't have to hold my arm," Lily said after a while. "Just talk to me. Describe what's around." Emily smiled. "Okay. There's a couple sitting on a bench, eating ice cream. A dog, a golden retriever, is running after a red ball, and the sky's just starting to turn pink." Lily tilted her head back, breathing in. "Pink. I barely remember what that looks like, but I can imagine it." For the next week, they met every day. Emily described colors, people, and the way sunlight played through the trees. Lily began to trust her deeply, and one evening, as the sky turned violet, Alexander arrived early to pick Lily up. He stood at a distance, watching the two laugh together by the fountain. He noticed the way Emily's eyes sparkled with kindness, and the way Lily's laughter, once rare, filled the air again. Something inside him shifted. Later, when Emily walked Lily to the car, Alexander said quietly, "I haven't seen her smile like that in years. You've done more for her in a week than therapists did in months." Emily looked away, shy. "She's an amazing girl. I'm just glad she trusts me." Alexander nodded slowly. "Trust. That's something I've forgotten how to give." His voice carried a shadow, a hint of something broken. Emily didn't ask what he meant, but that night his words echoed in her mind. And she had no idea that soon, that fragile trust would be tested in a way none of them expected. A few days later, the warm rhythm of their afternoons had already become part of Emily's routine. Each day after her shift, she met Lily at the park or near the cafe by the river, describing the world with gentle words, painting pictures for a girl who could no longer see. It was one of those golden afternoons when the air smelled like rain but the sky still shone, that in-between kind of day that felt almost poetic. Lily was sitting on the grass, her cane resting beside her, when she suddenly asked, "Emily, can I ask you something personal?" Emily sat down beside her. "Of course. You always sound so calm, so hopeful. Were you always like that?" Emily laughed softly. "Not really. I just learned to smile even when life gets messy." "Was it hard?" Lily's voice trembled slightly. Emily hesitated. "Yeah. My mom got sick a while back. I had to leave college to take care of her. Things haven't been easy since then." Lily's expression softened. "You take care of her all by yourself?" "Mostly. She's better now, but it's still a lot. Working at the bistro helps with the bills." There was a pause. Comfortable, quiet. Lily traced her fingers through the grass, as if trying to picture Emily's story. "You know," Lily said finally, "you sound like someone who still believes good things can happen." Emily smiled at that. "I have to, otherwise I'd never get out of bed." Neither of them noticed Alexander approaching until his shadow stretched across the grass. He stood there for a moment, watching them, his daughter smiling, Emily listening with genuine care. "Looks like I came at the right time," he said, his voice carrying that deep, steady warmth. Lily grinned. "Dad, Emily was telling me about the sunsets here. You should have heard her. It almost felt like I could see it again." Alexander's eyes softened. "Then I'd say she has a gift." As they walked toward the car, Emily noticed the faint exhaustion in his face, something heavy beneath the calm exterior. She hesitated, then asked, "Long day?" He gave a quiet laugh. "You could say that. Running a business means the days never really end. Maybe you need someone to describe sunsets to you, too," she said playfully. For a moment, Alexander just looked at her, and then, unexpectedly, smiled. A real smile. "Maybe I do." From that day on, their interactions grew less formal. Alexander began to join them more often during Lily's walks, sitting on a bench nearby with his coffee while the two girls talked. Sometimes he joined in, telling stories about when Lily was a child, or about her late mother, whose loss still lingered in every corner of their home. Emily listened, her heart tugged by the quiet pain in his words. She could see it, the way his shoulders tensed when he mentioned her, the way Lily's laughter dimmed for a moment before returning. One afternoon, a sudden summer rain caught them by surprise. They ran under a gazebo, laughing breathlessly. Emily's hair stuck to her face, and Lily's laughter echoed through the sound of rain hitting the roof. Alexander arrived moments later, searching for them. When he saw them together, wet, laughing, alive, he froze. The sight stirred something in him, something long buried. "Are you two all right?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. Perfectly fine, Lily said between laughs. You should have joined us. Emily smiled shyly. We're sorry for getting caught in the rain. I promise I didn't, but he interrupted her gently. Don't apologize. It's been a long time since I've seen her this happy. The way he looked at her, sincere, grateful, almost tender, made Emily's chest tighten. She didn't know what to say, so she just smiled. From that day, everything began to change. Alexander started stopping by the Magnolia Bistro even when Lily wasn't there, ordering coffee, sitting by the window, pretending to work. Sometimes their eyes met across the room. Sometimes he'd stay until closing, just to ask how her day went. One night, as Emily wiped down the last table, Alexander stood by the door. "Emily," he said softly, "I know this might sound strange, but would you join us for dinner at our home this weekend? Lily insists on it." Emily's eyes widened. "Me? At your house?" He smiled faintly. "You've become part of her life. I think it's time you see her world too." She hesitated, her heart pounding. I'd love to." As he left, Emily leaned against the counter, trying to steady her breath. She didn't understand why her heart was racing, whether it was excitement, fear, or something in between. But one thing was certain. Walking through those mansion doors would change everything, and you won't believe what happened next. Saturday evening arrived faster than Emily expected. She stood at the edge of Riverstone Estate, the grand Brooks family mansion overlooking the Savannah River. The long driveway shimmered beneath the twilight, framed by oak trees heavy with Spanish moss. The house itself glowed softly, golden light spilling through tall windows. She had never been anywhere like it. Her simple navy blue dress felt out of place against the marble columns and elegant gardens, but she took a deep breath and walked forward. The front door opened before she could knock. Alexander stood there, wearing a dark blue shirt with the sleeves rolled back, casual yet impossibly composed. "Emily," he greeted with a quiet smile. "I'm glad you came." She smiled nervously. "Thank you for inviting me. Your home is beautiful. Too big. Most days," he said with a faint sigh. "Come in. Lily's been waiting for you." Inside, the mansion was warm and inviting, not the cold luxury Emily had imagined. Family portraits lined the walls. Alexander with a much younger Lily, a woman with kind eyes and a smile that looked like sunlight. Emily's gaze lingered there. "That's her mother," Alexander said softly, noticing where she was looking. "She passed away 5 years ago, complications after Lily's surgery." Emily's chest tightened. "I'm so sorry." He nodded slowly. "Lily lost more than her sight that year. I lost everything else." Before she could respond, Lily's cheerful voice echoed from the hallway. "Emily, you came!" She rushed forward, guided by her cane, and hugged Emily tightly. The warmth of it made every bit of nervousness fade away. Dinner was served in the garden, beneath string lights that glowed like stars. The scent of jasmine filled the air. Lily chattered excitedly, while Alexander mostly listened, his gaze occasionally lingering on Emily. "So," Lily said between bites of roasted chicken, "Dad told me you used to study art. What kind of art?" "Painting," Emily replied. "I loved capturing moments, people's emotions, the way light touches their faces. But I had to stop when Mom got sick." Alexander leaned forward slightly. "You should paint again. Sometimes beauty is what helps us survive the pain." The sincerity in his tone made her heart skip. Their eyes met, just for a moment, but the silence that followed said more than words ever could. After dinner, Lily excused herself to take a call from a friend. Emily offered to help clear the dishes, but Alexander shook his head. "Let's take a walk," he said. They strolled along the edge of the garden, the night air warm and thick with the scent of honeysuckle. Fireflies glowed faintly in the distance. "Emily," he began, his voice low, "I hope this doesn't sound strange, but since you came into our lives, I've noticed something in Lily, a light I thought I'd never see again." Emily smiled softly. "She's special, Alexander. She just needed someone to remind her she still is." He stopped walking, turning to face her. "And what about you? Who reminds you?" The question caught her off guard. "Me? Yes," he said quietly. "You give so much, yet I can't help but wonder who gives back to you." Emily looked down, the truth trembling on her lips. "No one, I guess. I've been too busy trying to survive." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the river and the crickets singing in the distance. Then Alexander said, almost in a whisper, "You deserve more than survival, Emily." Her breath caught. His gaze lingered on her, gentle, searching, filled with something he didn't dare express. But before either could speak again, Lily's voice called from the patio. "Dad! Emily! Come see this!" They stepped back instinctively, the moment dissolving like mist. Lily stood smiling under the light, holding her phone. "My friend just told me she got accepted into college. Isn't that amazing?" Emily laughed softly. "That's wonderful, Lily." Alexander's composure returned instantly. "It is," he said, his tone calm again. But his eyes, they still carried that spark, that unspoken feeling. Later that night, as Emily prepared to leave, Lily hugged her tightly. "You're coming back next week, right?" "Of course," Emily said. "Wouldn't miss it for anything." When Alexander walked her to the door, silence hung between them, heavy, charged. "Thank you for tonight," she said quietly. He nodded, his gaze steady. "No, Emily, thank you for bringing life back into this house." For a fleeting second, his hand brushed hers, accidental, yet deliberate. The touch sent a jolt through her. She left before her heart could betray her. But as she walked down the path toward the gate, Alexander watched from the doorway, his jaw tight, his mind torn, because he knew what he felt wasn't right. But it was real, and that truth would soon unravel everything they had built. The following week, things felt different. The easy laughter between them had gained an unspoken tension, a softness wrapped in restraint. Every glance between Alexander and Emily lingered a second too long. Every conversation carried a layer of meaning neither dared to acknowledge. Emily told herself it was just admiration, gratitude, or the illusion of closeness that came from helping Lily. But deep down, she knew. She felt it every time his voice softened when he said her name. That Wednesday, Lily invited Emily again for lunch at the mansion. "Dad's working from home today," she said over the phone. "You should join us." Emily hesitated. "I don't want to intrude." "You're not intruding," Lily insisted. "You're part of the family now." "Part of the family?" The words melted something inside Emily and terrified her all at once. When she arrived, Alexander was on the terrace, reading a business report. He looked up as soon as he heard her footsteps. "Emily," he said, his tone softening instantly, "you're just in time." Lily was in the kitchen with the housekeeper, chatting about recipes. For a while, Emily and Alexander were alone. "You seem tired," she said gently, noticing the dark circles beneath his eyes. He chuckled quietly. "Running a company has its price." Then, after a pause, he added, "Sometimes I wish I could just stop, breathe." She tilted her head. "What would you do if you could?" He looked at her, really looked. "Maybe start over somewhere quiet, somewhere no one knows my name." Emily smiled. "You sound like someone who misses being ordinary." He exhaled. "Maybe I do." Before the moment could deepen, Lily appeared, carrying a tray of sandwiches. "We made too much food," she announced proudly. They laughed together, but Alexander's gaze still followed Emily, discreet, yearning, conflicted. As days passed, whispers began among the household staff. They noticed how often Alexander joined Emily and Lily, how his tone softened only around her. One evening, as Emily left, the housekeeper murmured quietly, "Be careful, dear. The Brooks family has a way of complicating simple hearts." Emily froze. "I don't understand." The woman smiled sadly. "You do." That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She kept replaying Alexander's words, his glances, his rare laughter. She knew it was dangerous. He was her employer, a man still grieving, a father who trusted her with his child, but emotions don't always ask for permission. The next morning, it all came undone. Emily arrived early at the estate, only to find Alexander in the foyer, his phone pressed tightly to his ear. His expression was cold, his voice sharper than she had ever heard. "No, I don't want her near that event," he said, turning away. "I said no, and that's final." When he hung up, he noticed Emily watching. "Everything okay?" she asked carefully. He hesitated. "It's about Lily. The hotel's charity gala is next month. They want her to attend, but I can't let her face that kind of crowd again, not after last year." Emily frowned. "What happened last year?" He looked away. "Someone made a cruel remark about her blindness. She cried the entire night. I won't let that happen again." "Maybe this time would be different," Emily said softly. "People can change." He turned to her, frustrated. "You don't understand what it's like to protect someone you love so much you can't breathe without worrying for them." Her voice broke slightly. "Maybe I don't. But I know what it's like to keep someone from living because of fear." Their eyes locked, raw, honest, trembling with unspoken emotion. "I'm sorry," he murmured after a long pause. "You didn't deserve that." "It's okay," she whispered. "I know it comes from love." Before either could say more, Lily appeared at the top of the stairs. "What's going on?" "Nothing, sweetheart," Alexander said quickly, regaining his composure. "Just business talk." But Lily wasn't convinced. Later that day, she turned to Emily and asked, "Why does Dad sound different when he talks to you?" Emily froze. "Different? Like softer, sad, but not the bad kind of sad. Like you remind him of something good." Emily smiled faintly. "Maybe I remind him he's not alone." That evening, as Emily prepared to leave, Alexander walked her to the car again. The sun was setting, painting the river gold. He stood close, too close, his voice low. "You make everything feel lighter, Emily. I don't know how you do it." Her breath caught. "Maybe because I see the good in people, even when they don't see it themselves." He hesitated, then whispered, "That's what scares me." Their eyes met, a silence full of everything they couldn't say. But before he could step closer, the sound of Lily calling from the porch broke the moment apart. Emily turned away quickly, clutching her bag. "Good night, Mr. Brooks." "Alexander," he corrected softly. She didn't look back. As she drove away, he stood watching the taillights fade into the night, torn between duty and desire, fatherhood and longing. Neither knew it yet, but the gala, the one Alexander swore she'd never attend, would bring every buried truth to the surface, and nothing would ever be the same again. The evening of the charity gala arrived like a storm that everyone had been pretending wouldn't come. The Brooks Grand Hotel was radiant under the city lights, chandeliers glimmering, violins echoing softly through the marble hall. Guests in glittering gowns and tailored suits filled the ballroom, laughter and champagne floating through the air like a perfume of privilege. Emily hadn't planned to be there. She was supposed to be at work, serving tables at the Magnolia Bistro, far from that world of wealth and secrets. But a sudden call from Lily changed everything. "Emily, please come," Lily had pleaded over the phone. "Dad finally agreed to let me attend. But he's nervous, and honestly, so am I. I just need someone I trust there." Emily hesitated. "Lily, I'm not sure your father. He'll be fine," Lily interrupted, smiling through her voice. "Please, just come." And so, Emily found herself stepping through the glass doors of the hotel, wearing the only elegant dress she owned, a simple ivory gown her mother once wore to a wedding. Her heart pounded as she scanned the crowd. Then she saw him. Alexander stood near the stage, perfectly composed in a black tuxedo, but his eyes betrayed him. When he saw Emily, his expression faltered. Surprise, confusion, and something else flickering behind his calm mask. "Emily," he said quietly as she approached, "what are you doing here?" "I came for Lily," she replied softly. "She asked me to—" He looked away, tension rippling through him. "I didn't expect—" He paused, lowering his voice. "You look beautiful." The words hung between them like forbidden music. Before she could respond, Lily appeared, radiant in a pale blue dress, her cane glinting under the chandelier. She took Emily's arm, beaming. "I told you she'd come, Dad." Alexander smiled faintly. "Yes, you did." For the first hour, everything went surprisingly well. Lily mingled with polite guests, guided gently by Emily. People admired her courage, her grace. Alexander stayed close, watching with both pride and fear, but peace never lasts long where hearts are involved. Halfway through the evening, an older woman, tall, elegant and sharp-eyed, approached Alexander. "Alexander Brooks," she said warmly. "It's been too long." He forced a polite smile. "Clara, it has." Emily stood slightly behind him, silent. Clara's gaze flicked toward her, curious and cold. "And who is this? A new acquaintance?" Before Alexander could answer, Lily spoke brightly. "This is Emily. She helps me practice walking, and she's our friend." Clara's smile didn't reach her eyes. "How kind of you," she said to Emily, her tone dripping with condescension. "You must be one of the staff from the local bistro, aren't you?" The words stung, not because they were untrue, but because of how she said them. Alexander's jaw tightened. "Clara, no offense meant," Clara interrupted smoothly. "It's just refreshing to see Alexander keeping such humble company." Lily frowned, confused. "That's not fair." But Emily stopped her gently. "It's all right, Lily." She smiled, though her voice trembled. "People only see what they want to see." She turned and walked toward the balcony before anyone could see the hurt in her eyes. A few moments later, Alexander followed. She stood there alone, the city lights shimmering on the river below. When she heard him approach, she didn't turn. "You don't have to explain," she said quietly. "She's right. I don't belong here." Alexander stopped behind her, his voice low. "Don't ever say that again." She turned, meeting his gaze, fierce, wounded, sincere. "It's true. I'm just a waitress, Alexander. I'm a man who's tired of pretending," he interrupted. "Tired of walking through rooms like this, filled with people who care about nothing real." Her breath caught. "And what is real to you?" He stepped closer, his voice trembling. "You. The way you look at my daughter, the way you make her smile, the way you make me feel alive again." Silence. The air between them pulsed like a heartbeat. "Alexander," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Don't. You know we can't." But before she could finish, he reached out, not to hold her, but to touch her cheek, a gesture of aching restraint. "I know," he said softly, "but I can't unfeel it." Just then, the ballroom doors opened behind them. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lily stood in the doorway, her face pale, her hand gripping the cane tightly. "Dad," she whispered. Alexander froze. Emily stepped back instantly. "Lily, it's not what it looks like." Tears welled in Lily's sightless eyes. "I trusted you," she said, her voice trembling. "Both of you." "Lily, please," Alexander began, but she turned away. "I just wanted a friend," she whispered. "Not someone to take my father from me." The sound of her cane tapping against the marble floor echoed like heartbreak as she walked away. Emily stood frozen, guilt tearing through her. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Alexander looked shattered. "Go after her," he said, his voice hoarse. "She needs you more than I do." But as Emily turned to run, she heard the faintest whisper behind her, the sound of a man breaking. And that night, for the first time in years, Alexander Brooks stood alone, surrounded by everything money could buy, and empty of everything that truly mattered. But that wasn't the end. Redemption was still waiting, in the most unexpected way. For 2 whole weeks, silence filled the Brooks mansion. The laughter that once echoed through the halls vanished. The warmth that Emily had brought into their lives dissolved into absence. Lily refused to see her. Every message Emily sent went unanswered. And Alexander, he buried himself in work, holding board meetings late into the night, leaving before sunrise, returning only when the world was asleep. Guilt haunted Emily like a shadow. She couldn't eat, couldn't focus at the restaurant. Every plate she served reminded her of the way Lily used to smile, the way Alexander used to look at her, not with desire, but with a rare kind of peace. And then one grey morning, the bell above the bistro door rang softly. Emily looked up and froze. Lily stood there, alone. She wore a simple cream coat and held her cane delicately, her face calm but unreadable. The few customers in the cafe glanced at her, recognizing the daughter of one of Savannah's richest men, but she seemed unaware of the attention. "Lily?" Emily whispered, her heart pounding. "I needed to talk," Lily said quietly. "Do you have a moment?" Emily led her to a corner table. Neither spoke at first, only the soft clinking of cups around them filled the silence. Finally, Lily said, "I was angry. I thought you betrayed me." "I never meant to," Emily replied, her voice trembling. "I care about you, Lily, more than you know." Lily's fingers traced the rim of her teacup. "I know you didn't plan it. I felt like I was losing him again. After Mom died, he shut everyone out. And when you came along, he smiled again. I didn't realize until that night how much that scared me." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "You could never lose him. He loves you more than anything." Lily nodded slowly. "I know that now. I've been thinking, maybe love isn't something we can control. Maybe Dad didn't choose to care for you. Maybe it just happened." Emily swallowed hard. "And what about you? Can you forgive me?" Lily reached across the table and gently took her hand. "I already did, because you made him happy, and maybe that's what Mom would have wanted." Tears blurred Emily's vision. "You're an incredible person, Lily." Lily smiled faintly. "I had a good teacher." The door opened behind them, and Emily froze again when she heard the familiar voice. "Lily." Alexander stood there, clearly startled to see them together. His eyes darted between the 2 women, unsure whether to approach. Lily turned toward his voice. "Dad, sit down." He hesitated. "I didn't expect—" "I know," she said firmly, "but I think it's time we stop avoiding what hurts." He sat slowly, his gaze landing on Emily. So many words hung unsaid between them: regret, longing, apology. "Emily," he began softly, "I wanted to call, but I didn't know what to say. Everything I do seems to hurt someone. You didn't hurt me," she said gently. "You just reminded me what it feels like to care again." He exhaled, the weight of weeks leaving his shoulders. "I shouldn't have let things go that far. I was confused, still grieving, still trying to fix what was broken inside me. But the truth is, you brought life back into this family. You brought light back into Lily's world." Lily smiled faintly. "And into yours too, Dad." He looked down, humbled. "Yes, into mine too." For a long while, they sat there, the three of them, no longer strangers bound by circumstance, but a small, imperfect family learning how to forgive. When it was time to leave, Alexander stood and looked at Emily, his voice steady. "You have a place with us, not as an employee, not as someone who doesn't belong, but as someone who changed everything. If you'll still have us." Emily hesitated, then smiled. "I'd like that." As they walked out into the sunlight, Lily slipped her arm through Emily's, and Alexander walked quietly beside them. For the first time, the silence felt right, peaceful, whole. Life didn't return to how it was before. It became something new, something fragile, but real. Emily continued helping Lily, but this time their bond was built on truth and trust. Alexander, too, changed, less guarded, more human, and one evening, as they watched the sunset together on the riverfront, Alexander turned to her and said, "You know, I thought I had everything money could buy, but it turns out the most valuable things in life are the ones you can't put a price on." Emily smiled, eyes glistening in the golden light. "Like love." He nodded slowly. "Like love." The river glowed behind them, reflecting the colors of forgiveness, second chances, and a future that finally felt like home. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and tell me if you liked this story.